Welcome to the Bottom Line Podcast with Nicholas Kuzmich, where we discuss what matters most, the bottom line, featuring the top minds in their industry. Now, let's get started.
Hey everybody, Nicholas Kuzmich here from the Bottom Line Podcast, where I connect with industry leaders to discuss what matters most, and that is the bottom line. Now, when I talk about the bottom line, of course, we're not just talking about bottom line profits, although that is super important, but really what's the most important thing in life, in business, to the individual that we're talking about. Past guests include Sean Clark, the CEO and co-founder of High Level, Ravi Abdiwala, Scaling with Systems, and so many more, all of which you can listen to and hear however you do that on the podcast circuit there. This episode is brought to you by H2H Media Group, a company that I founded, where we help high-ticket businesses get more high-ticket leads without the use of a traditional funnel. Generated close to $1 billion in sales collectively over the last 2 decades. If you want to learn more, go to nicholaskuzmich.com. But let's get right to it. Rob Kosberg, welcome to the podcast, man. I appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks, brother. Always love talking to you, man, and super happy to be here.
Well, I love everything that you're up to. But before we dive into the goods, there's going to be people in here who may not know who you are. They probably read
Shocking, appalling.
Well, what I was going to say is they've probably read many of the books you've published, but they may not know who you are. So if you had to elevator pitch it and say, this is who I am and this is what I do, and this is what a little bit of what my company does, how would you answer that? And again, you could go as long or as short as you want, because it's probably going to lead to a whole bunch of follow-up questions anyways. So however you want to tackle that.
I'll probably go short, but so I'm a Wall Street Journal best-selling author. I've written several books. My first book I wrote 16 years ago. That led me through a kind of circuitous path to founding Bestseller Publishing. It's now been over 13 years.
Wow.
And we have launched over 2,000 books for a lot of everyday folks, financial advisors, attorneys, doctors, dentists, chiropractors, etc., but also some influencers as well. We launched Jay Abraham's book, Roland Fraser's book, Kevin Harrington. I've worked with Brunson. We helped him launch .com Secrets back in the day, and so yeah, a lot of cool folks we've gotten to work with.
So you might know a thing about books.
Just a little thing.
I call you, in our circles, I call you the king of books, and I hope that's relevant.
Oh, I like that. I'm going to steal that, man.
Oh, for sure. But I mean, and that's not an exaggeration. When you've published the amount of books that you have with the people you have, and you understand the industry, not just from a book publishing standpoint, we're going to talk about this more in a second, but like, what do you do with a book? Most people think, you write a book and yay, I'm an author, and you leave it at that, and you don't make a penny, or you make 4 cents per copy you sell, and that's the end of it. But there's purposes, which we're going to talk about on if you do write a book, how do you utilize it for then, rather than just hoping that 1 million people are going to buy it, or you get $1 million advance, which likely won't happen for majority of the people.
True. Be nice if it would, but it typically does not.
I wish there was a way, just a cut and dry way to get $1 million advance for every book you write. I mean, if it was only that easy.
If only.
I like to start now. We both know a mutual friend of ours, Jason Gaynor, and he came up with this cool conversation deck because he believes good questions lead to good conversations. I'm in Hawaii currently. I don't have the deck with me, but I do like starting with a random question. Now, I did pull a question that I was going to ask you.
Okay.
But I'm going to spin it in another way because I know, I'll just ask the question and you tell me. Why do you own and love a Dogo Argentine dog?
Oh my gosh, man. Oh man.
I was going to ask another question, but I know you own the Dogo, and his name is Bob, right? Yes, Bob. I love that too. Why did you name him Bob? It's another question that I'll ask. But I bring this up because years ago when we were looking, it was COVID, we were looking for a dog. And I had grown up with just big dogs. So Rottweilers, Dobermans, German Shepherds. And of course, my wife and my kids wanted a little, they're not dogs. I better not say that. There's many dog lovers out here, and I don't want to offend anybody. So they are dogs, sure. But one of the things that came across our list very briefly was the Dogo Argentine for many reasons. And the playful nature, the protective nature. I mean, you
Yeah.
see videos of them standing up to lions, like, you want a piece of me,
Yes.
I'll take you out, no problem. And then you have the other videos of them being the best family dog with kids that anyone's ever seen. Now, the reason we didn't go that route, and I actually reached out and asked you
You
about
did
it,
ask. I remember. I
was
scared you away.
you did, thankfully, was because the reality of, I mean, they're highly energetic and they need to be
Yeah.
worked, right?
Yeah.
So all that to say is you have this beautiful dog. It's a Dogo Argentine. If no one knows what that is,
Yeah.
look it
Look it
up.
up.
Yeah, beautiful. Named Bob. So
Yeah.
sell me or the listeners as to why you have Bob and why you named him Bob. And if
Yeah.
anyone's thinking about a dog, why a Dogo Argentine might be a consideration.
Well, we didn't know what we were getting when we got Bob. So
Okay.
it was providence. It was the grace of God. It
No
was
kidding.
he is. I've had lots of dogs and generally big dogs all my life, and he is the smartest, the most loving dog that I have ever had. I mean,
Wow.
I love my dog. I walk him. I just got back from a walk coming
Right.
here.
Right.
Froze my butt off. It's cold in Florida right now. And we had, I mean, it's 5 times a day at least. He's the first thing I do, 5 o'clock in the morning. I go
Yeah.
for a walk, but it's prayer walk, it's meditation walk. It's fantastic. I live in a cool place, so it's always enjoyable to walk.
Right. Right.
Um, I would say, the dogo is not for everybody,
Sure.
right? But I would say if you are looking for a dog that is protective and is a great family animal, and you can put in the time, then I
Right.
can't imagine a
Right.
better dog. And I just love and adore Bob, and I have more pictures of Bob than I do of my children. I
And they
hate to
know that.
say, I mean, he is my
Oh, yeah.
screensaver. So,
Oh, he's
he
such a
is,
great
and he's
dog.
sitting right behind me. I mean,
I love it.
everywhere I go, Nick,
I love it.
he go everywhere. So it's okay. Let's go to work. So I have a guest house. So we, walk the outside 30 steps up, and,
Yeah.
and he's with me all the
I love
time.
it. I love it
Yeah.
so much. What a great animal you
Yeah.
have there. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so the king of books. Let's talk about, well, bestseller publishing. You've been around for about 13 years. How many books did you say are approximately total that were published
Yeah,
through your work?
over 2,000
Yeah.
at this point. And we launch 4, 5, 6 books every week for clients. Kind of have a really nice, pipeline
Yeah.
of clients, always coming through, which is cool.
And remind me how you got into the space. I know it started because you wrote a book
I
and then
did.
that opened up some ideas or whatever, but what was that little bit of a through line to say, hey, was it I hated this process and I can help other people better, or was it something else that said, you know what, we can really serve a need? And was
Yeah.
there a need 13 years ago, which is a different question because you go now to any entrepreneurial event and you ask how many people in this room have written a book, more hands than usual would go up.
Yeah.
But if you follow up with the question of how many people would like to write a book, 100% of the hands go up.
Right.
Like, was
Right.
it always that way when you started, or has
I
that
think
changed? Like, what's
so.
happening?
I think so. I think there has been a demand, and it was an unmet demand. I think Amazon tapped into it
Ah,
first
right,
20,
sure.
20 plus years ago, because there was such a fence wall around publishing, that the only way really you could get published was via a traditional publisher
Right,
back in the day.
right.
And they even came up with the name Vanity. I mean, it's like the cigarette companies, hiring doctors to talk about how
Yeah.
good cigarette
How healthy
smoking
they
is for
are.
you back in the 40s and the 50s, right? And so traditional publishers come up with the idea of vanity publishing because they didn't want their moat, anybody to
Yeah,
get over their moat.
yeah.
And Amazon broke all that down. And so I think eventually we were fortunate enough to be like in the beginning of that wave. But you see, I mean, anytime I go on Facebook or any media site these days, it's like there's 20 new people hawking ghostwriting and book services, and I can tell you, I've probably put 10 people in business that
Came through your
I did their
process.
books.
Yeah, right, right. Of
so
course.
so it happens, which is
Right.
there's a good demand for it.
Yeah, so much so. I mean, I was going to ask the question, why should everyone write a book, but let's take a step back and just say, should everyone write a book? Because, like, for some, is it similar? So we have a lot of friends in the space who are like Instagram influencers, if you will. And I don't even mean influencers that they walk around in bikinis all day, because that would be odd if a man
Right.
did that. But like, they consider themselves content creators, and as a result of the content they create, they amass a following. Now, the content,
Right.
good or bad, doesn't matter. It's just the fact that there's content out there and that leads to a following. And people look at that and then say, well, I want that too.
Yeah.
And so in their mind, they say, well, I have to amass a following by putting out semi-good content out to the universe and hoping that gets a following. And I remember having a conversation with a close friend of mine at the time, oh, actually currently, saying, hey, should I do this? And he's like, absolutely not. Like, there's just so much work behind it that nobody knows. They see the glory of it, but they don't see the work. You're
Right.
married to your audience. If you don't post for a day, you have them turn on you. I remember even talking to Jordan Harbinger about podcasts and said, should we write, he's a major podcast guy. Should
Yeah.
everyone have a podcast? And his immediate answer, absolutely not. Like, no one
Yeah.
knows. Is the same true for books? Is this a medium that truly is accessible, that everyone should in fact write one, and the only thing that's holding them back might be the story they're telling themselves about themselves?
Well, it depends on what your definition of everyone is, right?
Sure.
So
Okay.
if the definition of everyone is everyone that listens to this podcast, I can't imagine that someone would be listening to this podcast that isn't A, ambitious, B, a business owner of some kind that's
Right.
concerned about growing their business, etc.
Yeah.
So should everybody that's listening to this podcast write a book? Yeah, 100%, totally. They should. I even think, from if we step away from business and the, economic reasons for writing a book,
Mm.
I think if you're a dad, if you're a mom,
Mm.
you want to pass on your
Right.
stories
I
and
was
your
thinking about
wisdom to
that.
your children. You think that the world is going to go on beyond one or two more generations, and so there might be grandchildren or great grandchildren or great
Right.
great grandchildren. I mean, just think of your own families. Like I have this rich history of which I know nothing about.
Right.
I don't know anything
Right.
about my great great grandparents. They came from Russia, escaping Jewish persecution by the czars in the late 1800s. I know very little, next to nothing.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be cool to know? Yeah.
Mm.
I have a distant relative. My family, one side of my family, Russian Jews, and so I have a part of my family that's still in Russia, and I have a distant, very distant relative who was the number two man in charge of the Russian space program.
Wow.
And Simeon Kosberg is his name. There's actually a crater on the moon named after him, the Kosberg crater. And
Wait.
I mean, he received the Order of Lenin. There's a statue of him in front of the Moscow Aviation. I don't
Oh
know
my
anything about
God.
this guy.
Wow.
And this guy was one of the most famous people in Russia because he died under mysterious circumstances in the 60s, before I was born.
Right.
It's like, I mean, so, would a book like that sell? Probably not. But
Yeah.
man, for the additional generations, who wouldn't want it?
I I'm going to tell you a story that I've never publicly revealed anywhere.
Oh,
But,
man.
but
Okay.
based
I
on what
love
you're
those.
saying now, um, so I started pastoring long, long time ago. When I was 19, I was at a church in downtown Toronto. I wasn't at the office that day, and two elderly ladies came and knocked on the door and said, "Is Nicholas Kuzmich there?" They said, "No, he's not." And they said, "Well, can I have his phone number?" And he said, "I'm not allowed to give you his phone number, but if you leave a message, I'll leave it with him," and so on and so forth. So I was given their phone number and piqued my interest. His name was Denise. I'm like, I don't know who this is or whatnot. Called it, and she said, "Hey, this is gonna sound a little weird, but I'd love to meet up with you. I knew your father." And my father
Mm,
had passed at this point.
mm.
I said, "Okay, well, sure, let's meet up." Well, the long story, without taking too much time with it, is Denise was my father's first wife, which we didn't know about.
Wow.
Oddly enough, when I was a child, though, I remember cleaning up some papers and I saw a marriage certificate that said Denise on it. But I didn't make sense of it when you're like 6 years old or 7 years old.
Right.
You're like, I don't know
Right.
what that
Right.
means. And now it's all like coming together.
Yeah.
And she's like, look, I just always wanted to meet you because your dad was the love of my life. We tried to have children. We couldn't.
Mm.
I couldn't serve him well. And I know that's why we separated. I'm just so happy that he found someone that he loved. And I wanted to meet his son. Um, and then
Wow.
started to reveal. So my dad was born in the Ukraine. At 12 years old, was brought to a child concentration camp, or it's a labor farm essentially.
Mm.
Um, and it was weird because my whole childhood, my father was an alcoholic until later in life, and would have these nightmares and couldn't sleep at night, but would refuse to talk about it.
Mm.
So Denise is now telling me some of this history of why.
Wow.
She knew the stories of him in the farming labor camps and all this, and said, Nick, I hope you're okay with this, but I'm a writer by trade, and I would love to write your father's story.
Wow.
There's a few gaps that will be the end of the story that you could fill that I don't know because it's after he got remarried and had you. Um, are you okay with that? So I shared some of the story. Fast forward 6, 7 months later, I get a book in the mail, Rob.
Wow. How cool is that?
And things, my father had been passed now for many years.
Mm.
Things he just didn't want to talk. It was too hard to talk about. Things I had
Yeah.
never known about him. Now, did any other single person in the world buy that book? Probably not,
No.
right?
No.
But for me, I cherish this like 270 pages or however long it is. So
Beautiful.
when you talk about that, I think about my own kids and I think
Yeah.
about, yeah, I can write some more business books or whatever books, but
Yeah.
I want my kids to own something of me that they might not know the stories because I never spent the time. Like, so
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that
Yeah.
because outside the business stuff, which we're going to talk about, obviously, I think there are deeper reasons to leave legacy to your family.
100% there are. And, all you have to do is everyone has a story like that. You and I have a lot in common. I didn't know you were half Ukrainian.
Yeah,
And you probably didn't know I was Russian.
I did.
And even maybe you didn't know I was Jewish since I was also in the ministry,
You're
Christian
right.
ministry. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I have a story very similar, and probably most people do. And they don't know. I mean, we have ancestry.com and DNA
Sure.
23andMe
Right.
and so we're able to put more pieces together today than ever,
Yeah.
but not
Not
near
like
the
that.
richness of the stories that people can tell. So, you know, yeah, I mean, that's the best way
If
I can answer that
if for
question.
no, yeah, I mean, I have no authority in that space, but like, if for no other reason, I think everybody should consider the book as a legacy piece for your
100%.
children. I
Yep.
mean, if you're not going to use it for anything else,
Yeah.
like
And you don't need a big ghostwriting company. You don't need to, write a giant check to me. I mean, you can start writing down your stuff now. I mean, you can start telling it now. You can use AI to edit it. Like there's lots of things that you can do. It's not
Hmm.
like you have to write a big check. Sure, I'd love for you to come to me and write a big check. That'd be fantastic. I'll make it great. But I'm
Yes.
not going to promise that it's going to, sell a million copies and get you on today's show. That's
Right.
that's that's probably not going to happen.
Well, and let's talk about that because like it's one of those weird things where everybody says I want to write a book. Very few people end up doing it
Yeah.
because of a million and one reasons, right? I know
Yeah.
my original reasons was like every time I see that blinking cursor on my Word document taunting me, like, come on, what do you got?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I got nothing.
Yeah.
There's everyone wants to do it, but people don't. Now, I don't think we necessarily have to talk about why people don't, because everyone can relate to the reason why they don't.
Yeah.
But could you maybe talk about how to overcome that? Whether it's, I know you guys do ghostwriting, and maybe we can define that term because maybe that's changed over the years. I
Sure.
know you also have an AI tool that can now help people. Maybe we could talk
Yep.
about that a little bit. But
Yep.
for the person who says, I would love to, I'm just stuck.
Yeah.
What are their options to consider starting to get words on a piece of paper?
Yeah. Yeah. Great question. I think if there is a clear economic reason and business reason, you're whatever you're selling something that's a higher ticket price point,
Hmm.
and a book would put you on stages, get you media, be an incredible closing tool, be a lead generator. Then the best thing to do if you're not a writer is just write a check to a company like mine, if it's a company that has a great track record and great social proof and testimonials, then entrust yourself to somebody that's
Through the
going to
process.
help you to get it
Yeah.
done. They'll help you to get it done faster
Yeah.
and easier, and money loves speed,
Yeah.
right?
It's
So
the who,
if it's
not how.
about right, if
Yeah.
it's about money, if it's about the economics, then write a check, because you're never going to get it done properly yourself unless
Right.
you're a professional writer.
Right.
And even then, there's so many more holes that need to be filled, like the design, like the
Right.
editing, like the publishing, like the launch of it, et cetera, et cetera. So many other holes that need to be filled. So that's for that person. If you want to, write something that's more a legacy piece, or more about your own stories, or maybe you want to write something that's fiction or children's book or whatever, then there are great tools that you can use if you're not a writer. Um, the way we designed our software that I think makes it unique in the marketplace is AI cannot write any book that would be termed your book in
Right.
minutes or even hours or days,
Right.
because there's not a chip in your brain, telling
And it's
AI your
connected to,
stories.
yeah.
And right,
Right.
so all it's doing is, if you put a prompt in, then sure, it can go to the interwebs and it can find information, and it can give you that information in a reasonable way, and maybe even write in your voice if you give it content, etc. Problem is, that's not your book.
Right.
It's AI's book.
Right.
It's not what Amazon wants. It's not what Barnes and Noble wants. Amazon has really specific guidelines, and they red flag that if either A, if you don't tell them, or B, if you tell them like you're supposed to, they red flag it. So ours is really more of what's called AI assisted content.
Right.
So it is a combination of helping people to find the right hook, find the right audience, the title, the subtitle, the table of contents, the outline for a chapter, and then the specifics of the story, and that our AI helps someone to iterate it, and
Right.
then takes their words, which someone can download a podcast episode, or they can just tell their story, just talk into the microphone, and it will go speech to text and then take your story and rewrite it. I
Mm.
personally love that.
So
I
great.
think that's a great way for somebody that wants to just tell their story to do it if they're not a professional writer.
And where can, while we're just talking about that, where can someone go to learn about and get on your tool? And again, I want to emphasize that I'm not a writer, and I don't want to sound promotional or whatever, but like going to Chat GPT and saying, write me a book
Yeah,
is
yeah,
is not the way to do it. Like
right.
they have some tools out there that can help you with proficiencies and whatever, but that's not the way to write a
Sure.
book, particularly a book that you're going to be proud of.
Yeah.
So
Anything that's prompt based, even there's lots of really good writing tools that are AI based, and so
mm,
really, it's Chat GPT is the engine,
sure.
or Claude is the engine, but they're still prompt based. And so when it's prompt based, it means that they're good at asking really good intricate questions for
Right.
AI to write your book. It's still not your
Yeah, yeah.
book.
Right.
It's not your story. It's not
Right.
your example. It's not your case study. So if you want something general like that, and you want to use it as a lead magnet or whatever, yeah, great. I wouldn't publish that to your account on
Right.
Amazon,
Right.
because you'll be at risk there if you do that.
So where should they go to learn about your AI?
I wrote a book on it called Write with AI. They can
Love
go
it.
to writewithai.com,
Love it.
and that book is crushing it on Amazon. I mean, it has been number one bestseller since I published it, which
I can
now it's like
imagine.
7 or 8 months. So
Yeah.
it is doing really well. Anyway, I talk about the differences, how someone can write with AI, and then I introduce our tool, which is Manuscriptor, for anybody that's interested in learning more.
Awesome. I appreciate that. I know you
Yeah.
probably have an opinion on it, and there's a lot of people who talk about this. Um, and we talked a little bit about it in the past, but like, there's traditional publishing, there's
Yeah.
self-publishing or what someone called vanity or whatever. And then there's hybrid.
Right.
Um, are there legitimate use cases for each? And, where would you direct someone who's saying, okay, I'm committed to writing the book. I'm either going to get manuscript or I'm going to write you a check and like make this thing happen.
Yeah.
What are some of the considerations that they should have around publishing, or some of the myths that we need to dispel around all versions of publishing that currently exist?
Yeah, that's a great question. Obviously what we do is more hybrid publishing, and just to be really honest, hybrid publishing really is self-publishing with a wrapper on it, right? So that's really what we do.
Hmm.
Traditional publishing, there is a place for traditional publishing, but that place is getting smaller and
Right.
smaller. It used to be, right? That was the only circuit. That
Right.
was the only place, the only platform. So who should go the traditional publishing route? So there are probably three, not categories, but three ways to look at it, or three things that if you check these boxes, go this route. I'd say number one is if you already have a big platform. So you have 100,000 people on your email list or more, you have hundreds of thousands or millions of followers that listen to you and buy your recommendations and et cetera, et cetera. Then okay, that's a box to be checked. That doesn't mean you go that route, but that's a box that you're checking. If you don't
Which is
check that
which is
box,
kind of odd though, Rob, isn't it? Because like back in the day, wouldn't you go to a publisher for their distribution? But now they're like, we're not going to do anything unless you have your own means of distribution. Like it's, I don't know.
well, yes and no. I mean, even back in the day, the people that they were publishing, for the most part, already had
Anyways,
some level
okay,
of fame or expertise that
sure,
they could just plug in pretty easily to their network.
yeah,
And
got it.
remember, there wasn't this, there wasn't social media and even the internet at that time.
Right,
So, they were just plugging people into the PR channels
got
and
it.
speaking channels. Now people have access, instead of doing a book signing party at a Barnes and Noble, you can go on Facebook Live and get more people there in 5 minutes, not leaving your home,
Yeah, right,
than setting up a book signing, 3 months from now. So
right,
who wants to do that?
sure.
Some people still do, and it's always disappointing. so, so anyway, that's the first box
Yeah,
to check is if you have a big platform. The second to check is if you don't have something that you're selling that the book is leading to. So
uh,
you don't have a course or
mm,
you don't have a high ticket offer on the back end. You don't. If you do not have that, then that's another box and
great point.
reason to check it.
Right,
And probably the third is really what the culmination of those two is, and that is that if you meet those two criteria, you'll probably get a decent sized check from a traditional publisher, maybe high five figures, maybe even six figures, maybe even seven, depending on the size of your audience.
mm,
And if you're not going to use the book to make money elsewhere anyway, then that's a great traditional publishing client.
right,
Um, so fill in the blank for everybody else. If you have a really big audience, but like your book is you want to keep the rights to your book because you want to name a course after it, you want to create a program after it, you need the rights to it, then you'd be foolish to take any
yeah,
money from. I mean, I didn't take, obviously, I wasn't offered a big check. I didn't ask, but this book has made me millions, millions, because I run a book funnel that I have for going on 7 years. That every single person, we compete with Amazon, every person that buys it through the book funnel, and it's been tens of thousands,
yeah,
thousands and thousands a year, go into our program to see if they're interested in buying our high ticket done for you services.
right,
I couldn't do that. I couldn't run a book
right,
funnel if Simon and Schuster owned the rights to it.
right, right.
So
I love that. So speaking of which, I think this is a great segue. W- In your opinion, so let's talk because majority of the people on this are high ticket business owners, anyways. They're online savvy. They have something to sell. Um, you mentioned the book funnel, which I love. Yeah, what can you provide perspective then around what is the actual best use case for the book? Because if you're self-publishing and you're selling these for however much you're selling them for, like you're not going to make a gazillion dollars selling a
right,
$27 book or a
right.
$14 book or on Kindle, whatever, $5.99, however you price that.
Yeah. Wait
Um,
a minute. Wait. I got my check from Lightning Source just the
Okay.
other day. There you go. I don't know if you can see that.
Big money, baby.
$32.20.
Big money.
Now, to be honest, Amazon
Yeah.
sent me about 600 or 700 bucks, so there is that.
Sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I'm glad that you literally had that on your desk because it
Yeah,
shows
I
because like
literally, because why? I'm not gonna. I'll put it in the bank eventually, but when
at
I've
some
got like
point
four others
it,
like it,
it's
I'm
going to
not gonna.
cost you more money to go to the bank to cash it
Exactly.
than it is to
Actually, and who goes to the bank? I use an app now anyway, but I
right,
haven't had time to do it.
right. But I'm glad you had that because I think for some there is still who just don't understand the book world that
Yeah.
oh like I'm just going to make money with selling copies of the book.
Right.
And, and
Right.
and maybe if you're a James Clear and you sell 40 gazillion copies, there might be a
Exactly.
check on the end of that day. But the average person, you talk about a book funnel. Can you talk about that or other use cases? But what is the best use case for having a
Yeah.
published book in your hand?
Yeah. So the basket is lead generation,
Right,
speaking
right,
opportunities, or PR and media.
right.
And really
I love how
the
you
second two actually lead to the first one anyway, right? The
anyways.
second two, although often you're paid to speak, but that goes back to leads, and then you're getting on media, and that goes back to leads as well. So really, it's a matter of lead gen.
Yep.
The beauty of a book is that you can sell it at a discount or free plus shipping still works. Where right now my book on Amazon is like 19.95. But I'm saying, hey, it's free. I'll give it to you for free. It's a Wall Street Journal bestseller. Just cover shipping,
Right,
$7.95.
right.
And that actually covers the printing and the shipping
Hold on,
of
yeah.
it, or
Right.
pretty close. And now you know the value of a buyer versus an email address. I mean,
Big,
it's
big
like,
difference.
I don't know, 16 times more valuable to have an actual buyer, someone who pulled out their credit card.
Yeah.
And they immediately go into an opportunity to get the audio book for a price, to get this other stuff that we've put together, our Kickstarter program, et cetera.
Yeah.
And then ultimately, hey, would you like a coaching call? Would you like to talk to an author development coach about your needs? And
Right.
oftentimes, I mean, people will buy the book and fill out an application at the exact same time,
Without
like
even reading the book.
without
Yeah, right.
never receiving it, never reading it,
Yep.
nothing, just immediately,
Yeah.
yeah, this guy's got a book. Yeah, let's have a conversation.
Well, I think
Obviously, not
there's an
everybody,
important
but
point
some
there. Well, the realization is like the book carries with it authority, obviously,
does.
right off the gate. And what I mean by that is like someone who, even if the book was 100% free, no shipping and handling, like we know the lift that
Yeah.
you get when someone does a credit card. But even if it was a free book that they got in their hands, the
Yep.
value of a book compared to a downloadable PDF, I
Yeah.
mean, or even a
Yeah.
webinar for that matter, for any other content mechanism,
Yeah.
the book carries weight. Secondly, if someone is buying or even downloading, however they want to do it, a book called, Publish, Promote, and Profit, what
Right.
do you think they might be interested in? Like
Exactly.
it's
They're
it's
my
a
client.
it's a qualification process
Totally.
along the way. So I think, I mean, there's I just love that you brought that up with I like the three buckets, but ultimately at the end of the day, people should be seeing the book as a lead generator to sell the thing that you're actually trying to sell.
Yeah.
And when it comes to lead generation methodologies or platforms, there's very few things, if any, that are as good as putting a book in someone's hand. Here's the crazy part, like you said, even if they don't read it. I
Yeah.
mean, if they read it, golly, a whole
If they
nother
read it, they're
level.
done. They're
Yeah.
done.
But if they
They're
don't,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, so can we talk a little bit about is there a right way to write a book and a wrong way to write a book? And
Yes.
because there's this concept of like, oh, I'm just gonna write what I want and
Yeah.
my ideas and put them in some sort of a cohesive way. I
Right.
know you immediately say yes, so I'd love like what are the right ways and the wrong ways to write a book for people just to avoid? Because again, I think there's some misconceptions out there, and if there's other misconceptions that come to mind, Rob, please share those. But they're just some misconceptions about, hey, if I just sit in front of my computer, I pound out some work, or I get the AI support, and I pound out a book. Now I'm good, man. Now I'm going to make the millions, and the leads are going to start rolling
Right.
in, and it's going to be
Right.
awesome. Not the case, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's probably the first way not to write a book is without a plan, right? Like if you don't have a plan, sitting down at the computer is just going to lead to frustration. And I mean, it's now two clients that have come to me. It used to be just one story I had. Now I actually have a second
Mm.
where each of them had 1,000 pages written. They had been writing for years, 1,000. Both of them had more than 1,000 pages written and did not have a book.
Wow.
Now they had lots
Content.
of parts of different books,
Yeah.
right? But it was just, it's mind numbing. Their social media posts or whatever, but and so, we in essence had to start from scratch with both of those clients
Right.
because you have to start with a plan. So,
Right.
and probably the second mistake or the second way to think about it is similar, maybe a subtopic of it, and that is write for, from my perspective, if it's about economics, then
Yeah.
write for as narrow an audience as possible, like just like an ad, right? I mean, which is the exact opposite of what most people do.
Right.
They want to
Great
write
point.
their success principles or their life's principles, and it's like, no, 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 no one knows who you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
They don't care what your success
Right.
principles are.
Right.
Now, if you are, an expert in agile consulting for manufacturing firms, hey, then there's about 2,000 people in the United States of America that can write you 6 and 7 figure checks that care about what you
That.
know.
Right.
Start there.
Right.
And that's a true example, by the way.
Well, and is there, on that note, I love that example. Back in the day, Russell Brunson created this thing called like the perfect webinar. And again, you could put two webinars out there. One sells nothing, the other sells a ton. Could that same mentality be approached to books of that there's a right way to outline and plan and craft a book if the intention is economics?
Yes.
And then there's a wrong way. We don't need to get into it, but just for the
Yeah.
sake of people knowing that, is there a quote unquote right way from if the point is lead gen, building a business, generating leads, getting on stages, doing PR and all that, that
Yeah.
you would write a book differently than for another reason?
100%. Yeah. If you're writing a book for an economic purpose, then there is a specific way to do it
Right.
that is going to give you the highest potential outcome of success for it.
Right.
No question.
Yeah, I love that. Can we talk a little about um, lists? And what I mean by that is there's New York Times list, there's Wall Street list, there's Amazon bestseller list,
Yeah.
there's this list and that list. And
Yeah.
I don't know enough or anything about it for that matter. I know there's the illustrious, everybody wants to get on a list.
Yeah.
I remember way, way back in the day, there were services that told you if you cut me a $500,000 check, I will get you on the New York Times bestseller list. I don't know if
Result
that's
source. Yep.
true
That
or
was a
not
big one.
anymore.
Yeah.
What's your take on lists and the ability to really get on one or certain lists better than the others? Better as in like actual value versus perceived value. What's the whole thing on lists?
Yeah. There is a value to certain lists.
Mm,
The New York Times list, obviously, they have a massive following and a lot
sure.
of weight and a lot of traffic. The problem is it's not really a bestseller list; it's a curated list.
Yeah, right.
So they put on there their buddies,
Right.
and if you have the wrong politics
Mhm.
or thinking, then they'll leave you off the list, even if you're selling really, really well.
Mm,
So that's something to keep in mind. That is less and less, but that's a great. I mean, if you can hit that list, man, that's there's a lot of self-perpetuating success
that could come
in
from
being
it.
able to hit that list.
Mm,
There's also value in hitting lists for other things that you may want. Like if you want to get on, old school TV and radio and you want to get on the right speaking stage, you know, being a Wall Street Journal bestseller holds weight
right.
because, there's only 10 of them a week and the list, by the way, shut down last year. We're hoping it's going to restart, but
Is
it
that right?
actually the Wall Street Journal list is defunct. It's not even in existence anymore. Yeah.
No kidding. So it
Yeah,
even
it was
carries more
costing too
weight for those
much.
who are on it. Wow.
Yeah, yeah, it still carries a lot of weight. We hope that the Wall Street Journal list will come back, and we'll see. I actually have a meeting following this one about that very topic with some of my clients.
Wow.
So it does carry weight, and I hope that they do bring it back. But then you also have USA Today and others,
Got it.
even some of the newspapers like LA Times. And so, um, there's the reason for having them if you're looking for A, B, or C, right? I want to get on the Good Morning America show, or I
Mm,
want to be on this stage. They pay attention to that. They notice that. On the other hand, if you're looking to run a book funnel, no one cares,
right.
right?
Right.
No one cares if you're Wall Street Journal or if you hit a list, if you hit the Amazon bestseller list legitimately, and you just put national bestseller on your book, which will give it a bump on in the book funnel,
Right.
then that's all you really need to worry about if you're running a book funnel for economic purposes.
And part of what you do is helping with that. Like I think,
We do.
and we don't have to go too deep into this if you don't want, but I call you the king of books, but probably like the prince of PR as well. Like in the sense where, because you understand how they play together, right?
Yeah.
You have the book, but then you have radio, television, PR, and I know you can't guarantee everybody whoever wants to get on there or whatnot. Um, but could you talk a little bit about the PR side and whether or not working with you, if that should be a consideration as part of like a book process?
Yeah, PR is cool for a lot of reasons. I've been on TV all over,
Yeah.
and a biggest station in Los Angeles, all over California, from the Midwest and Texas. But and and great, but really what's cool about it is the ability to repurpose
To
that.
leverage it. Yes.
Yeah, to
Right.
leverage that stuff for social media. I mean,
Right.
I've never gotten a client because I was on TV and the phone rang.
I love that you're sharing this. Yep.
Never.
Yep.
But I have gotten clients because that video of me on KTLA, January 2nd, talking about, publish, because that, got 60,000 views on social media.
Right.
And so
Credibility
the,
piece.
the repurposing of it's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, you also get, I mean, PR, there's nothing like podcasts for PR, right? Like,
Mm,
because the audience is so narrow.
yeah.
And if you're writing a book that has a narrow topic and you're on the right podcast, that almost always leads to money or at the very least opportunities.
Sure.
And so, yeah, I mean, we love PR. We try to push all of our clients either to do it themselves and we show them how, or write us a check and we'll guarantee
Take
the
care of it.
outcome. And I can't guarantee like the level of PR.
Sure.
Like I can't guarantee Good Morning America, but I can get them on Good Morning Tucson, and
Yeah.
I mean, or
But
Good Morning Vegas, or Good Morning somewhere.
well, here's the crazy thing, though. I mean, and you correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't know that world at all. But I feel like to the mass public, Good Morning Anything is Good Morning Anything.
It's a
Like they're
big
like,
deal.
oh my God, Good Morning something. Jesus, you were
Yeah,
on. I saw you
yeah,
sitting on a couch with the host there and
that's exactly right.
chatting it up. So
Talk
like,
talk about legitimizing, right?
yeah,
Like yes, your book legitimizes you, and it certainly does. But you got your book, and now you have video of you being on television, and I have clients who two that come to mind. One was a
yeah,
veterinarian that I did a book for, and another was he helped kids with learning disabilities,
mm,
ADHD,
mm,
social anxiety, things like that. And both of them, I got local television in their local marketplaces. Both of them, it was a six-figure check.
wow,
One TV appearance
right,
because it led to so many clients.
right.
Like the one guy was doing stem cell therapy for dogs. Older dogs, big dogs have
Oh,
hip
yeah,
problems,
yeah,
and
yeah,
and I mean stem cell therapy is like a miracle therapy.
right.
Like I don't know very much about it, but I mean, this guy has like before and after stuff of these 10-year-old Labradors that could barely walk, and then after stem cell therapy, they're like puppies again. And it's like I don't know 3, 4, 5 grand to get it done, and if you
Sure,
love your dog,
you're getting it done.
5 grand, baby. And so I mean, and the book got at that.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
not every situation is like
sure.
that. Most are not, but
Well,
some it's cool.
I'll tell you, I mean, just as a byproduct of this, like I was working with a financial services client, and they're like, "Hey, can you go check out this person's funnel and let me know what you think? Because like we may want to model it." And I get over to the landing page, I'm like, "Oh, like, this is the video. This is garbage. Like, Jesus, they don't even know. Like, there's no cohesive
That
message."
may be one of my clients. I wonder if it
Yeah,
was
I
because
won't, I
I
won't
had a
tell. I'm
I
only,
got a
I'm only-
story for you about one of mine.
okay. So, and I'm like, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And like, I'm going through and I scroll down and there's just two media placements of
Mm,
them on a Good Morning something.
yeah, yeah,
And I understand the game,
right.
but immediately my mind said, huh,
Yep,
no wonder they're doing so well. And so, like,
yep,
not that I would ever advocate this for anybody, but like, you can have bad copywriting and a bad process
right.
and two media pieces, and you're holding a book. Now, in
Yeah,
this case, I don't know if they were holding a book, but like a media piece and a book
yeah.
will trump bad copywriting and a bad process. And I was like, wow. It also brought me back to when you were saying, a few years ago, I was having a conversation with Billie Jean, and for I think a week or a month, I don't know how the economics work in terms of what you're allowed to do. Billie Jean went off and like basically bought up 50% of all the available billboards in San Diego and just put his big ass face on it and said something ridiculous on it.
He's
And
crazy.
it cost a good fortune, right?
Yeah, no
And,
question.
and so I said, "What are you doing, man? Like, you know better than this. You're an online guy." And he goes, "Yeah, well, here's what I want you to know, Nick. I got negative ROI on my placements of the billboard ads all over San Diego. But we took a helicopter with a video team and got all of them on video. And I took that and I put it online. And that was millions and millions and millions of dollars of ROI. So
Is that
to your
crazy?
point, to that you
Yeah,
were saying, like being on the Good Morning, whatever, in
yeah,
and of itself may not carry the weight.
yeah,
But if you know how to leverage that as any other way,
totally.
and I think people underestimate. I feel like we should edit this portion out of the podcast because I don't want people to know them secrets that they could just go to Rob Kosberg and do the PR thing. Um,
You know what I think I'm gonna do? I think I'm gonna buy a billboard here on I-95 or something and put my big old ugly face on it.
just for a month, right? A few $1,000, put it up for a month.
Seriously,
Go get a
I mean that
video.
is a cool idea right there. That is a
It,
cool idea.
I mean, and again, because the thing was, in the online space, everyone was trying to stand out, and
Yeah,
like you could put some great videos together and great VSLs and say the right things and whatever, but when you have video footage of a helicopter flying over your city, spotting a handful of your face on a billboard, that
that's pretty
just
cool.
it sets you it levels up a whole other
That's pretty
level.
cool.
Yeah.
That dude is crazy.
Oh, he is crazy. That's good. I give it to him. He's willing to go with it. Rob, I know we're coming to an end here. I like to ask this question because it's a great way to summarize certain things, and then I have two wrap-up questions. Um, what do people not know that they probably should about the book writing stuff? Like, is there anything we missed that maybe they should just come to terms with when they're considering this whole thing for them?
I would say don't underestimate how hard it is,
Mm,
even with help,
mm.
because I think sometimes people underestimate how hard it is and then they get discouraged and they quit.
Ah,
Um, yeah, I mean, Nick, look, there's a lot of good things out there. I've never done anything um, as successful as writing my first book and the
right,
books thereafter. I mean,
right,
they've changed my life.
right,
So, but they're hard. They're hard to do.
right.
So don't underestimate that. Embrace it, even with help, and then you'll get through it.
I love that. What a great way to kind of put a bow on that. Second last question I always like to ask everybody. This is only for like selfish purposes, but also other people benefit from it. What's the best purchase you made in the last 12 months? Big or
Best
small, doesn't
purchase.
matter what the price point is, but like I'm always looking for cool things that people are buying, and I know the
Uh,
audience always loves cool things. So like, does anything come to mind? Could be high or low, could be free, could be
yeah,
ridiculous, but anything come to mind?
probably. I bought an MC20
Hey,
Maserati. Yeah,
in the last
and
12 months.
yeah, in the
I didn't
last
know
year.
that. Well
Yeah,
then.
last January I actually bought it, so almost exactly 12 months ago. And I joined a car club that does these drives, and they're trooper escorted. So
Ah,
they're vigorous drives, like always 120, 130. I've had it over 100. These are on the main. These
Yeah,
are
yeah.
on the interstates, right?
And you're saying
With
they're trooper escorted, so you don't have to have radar detectors looking
I
out for.
passed the state trooper doing 130. I passed him doing 130 mile an hour, and
Oh,
he's got his lights on, and because he's blocking traffic for us. So
oh.
yeah, that has been some of the most fun I've had in a long, long time. I'm going to the Daytona. I'm going to take it on the Daytona 500 track at the end of this month. So
Oh.
it's a lot of fun.
So for
Yeah,
someone like, again, back in the day, I was never a car guy until I started driving cars, and I'm like, okay, I get it.
yeah,
For someone who's just not watching, let's say they have the financial means, but there's some weird story in their head
yeah,
that just says don't do it. They have the means. It's not a stretch, it's not a effort, it's not difficult. Um, but they might be saying, "Oh, I'm not a car guy," or I can come up with whatever excuse not to get a car that talk to them for 2 seconds, like about why they should do it or not, the joy that
yeah,
it could potentially bring. Because like I get it. There's a visceral.
yeah.
I was driving. My wife was in the passenger seat, and I mean, we're not even on a track or anything. I'm just driving. She looks over at me. She's like, "You're just so happy." I'm like, "I'm giddy. I don't know. This is
I'm like a little kid. I'm
yeah,
the same way.
yeah."
I'm the
Talk
same
talk
way.
to the person who's like, "I've got the means. I don't know what would you say to that person about buying a
I
car?"
think you and I are a lot alike in this respect because I don't post my car. I don't like it's not for show and
Mm,
flash. I noticed that you don't either. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with people
sure.
doing that. I would say to the person that maybe has something in their head, it's because of that concern.
Ah,
It's
yeah, you're
it's
right. Right.
and so I would just say, and I hesitated in answering the question even. You probably noticed because I was like, I don't really want to talk about it, but
Yeah.
let's just tell the truth, and
Yeah.
because it's by far my
I love that.
funnest
Love
purchase
that.
by
Yeah.
far.
Yeah.
And so to me, it's just joy. It's just visceral joy.
Yeah.
It's just going fast. It's these car rallies and everybody's cool. They're great people. They're not jerks and I'm not saying that there aren't people like that. There's people like that everywhere, but
Yeah.
so it's just the environment itself is a blast. And if you love cars and you love to go fast and you love to do fun things, then man, like
I
do
I
it.
I say, I mean, there's certain things that are definitely return on investment. A car is
Yeah.
generally not one of them, especially if you're going to
Yeah.
drive it.
Yep.
Then there's certain things like return on lifestyle. So like
Yeah.
making choices of where you travel and how you go. Like you're not going to
Yep.
get a return on money for it, but the lifestyle benefits of that.
Yep.
Me moving to Kelowna was a great example of that. And then there's just those few things that I say are return on bliss. Like
Yeah.
it's just
That's good.
they make no sense on any other level except the pure bliss.
Yep.
And you can't put a price tag on that. I know that sounds
Yeah.
weird, and I'm not just if it's cars that are not your thing for people, then maybe it's not the car. But do the thing that just
Yeah.
makes you giddy and act like a kid again, because the spillover halo effect of that is just
Yeah.
it's so good.
Yeah. I just love it. I love parking. I love, looking at all the other cars, getting in
Yeah.
the other cars.
Ah,
It's not a trophy.
yeah.
It's a toy.
Yeah. Oh, I
Yeah.
love that so much. Okay, last question to wrap up. I wrap up all the time with this question. Is imagine you're at some sort of a banquet, let's call it like the Oscars or the Emmys, an award show, and you're being handed over a lifetime achievement award for everything you've
Mm.
done up until this point. What I want to know is who are you thanking in your speech and why?
Well, probably the first thing that I would do is thank God. Um, I don't think that's not the right way to put it. There's nothing in my life that I have or even have earned that hasn't been either given to me or
Mm,
isn't because of the skills and gifts and talents that I have that I inherited
mm,
from, my family and as a gift of God. So that is the absolute first thing. For me, I've been married a long time, so my wife
yes.
is, my rock. Some of the biggest mistakes that I've made in my life was looking back because I didn't listen to her.
Right. Right.
I mean, just to be honest, I mean, she's got a gut. Oh man, she's got such a smart gut.
Yeah.
And so, if I'm standing in front of the stage like that, it's probably because she did something.
I love it. I love it. Well,
So those are the first two for sure.
that's all we need. I think that really brings that home. We've been talking to Rob Kosberg here, founder of Bestseller Publishing. Where shall people go to say, Rob, I'm interested. I want to know what to do next and how to do that. Where do they go to do that?
Probably check out the books first. So publishpromoteprofit.com is where they can learn about our enhanced ghostwriting process and book launching and that kind of thing. And if they want to know about Write with AI, it's just writewithai.com. So either one of those probably best place to start.
Yeah, I love that. Everybody, remember, there's only so many hours in a day, so let's not waste any of them and focus on what matters most, and that is the bottom line. Rob, thank you for your time today.
Thanks, buddy. Good to be with you.
Thanks for listening to the Bottom Line Podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.